indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for coming. Good.
You don't have them. Big as this. Usually just the chief and Sean. Yes. Sean's yes. And Hugh, of course. The next thing on the agenda is the
No, we
No.
don't have any minutes.
minutes. The last meeting have not been distributed, so we'll go by that. And the next is department reports and chief.
One department.
Normally over here. Good evening. Hey, everybody. I'll start out with sad news. As you know, we lost a member this past Friday, First Fox, 51-year veteran of the fire department. A big hole in this community. He's already been buried privately with the family, so just gonna do a celebration of life. So it'll be Sunday, June 9th. We're at the fire station, 12 to 4. If you'd like to join us. Memorial Day breakfast went very well. Kind of rainy. We had to cancel a parade, but we had a good turnout with breakfast, so that was good. You came. This Friday, a few of us and a couple of junior firefighters are going up to the high school for career day. Be teaching, presenting on firefighters and junior fire department. I'm gonna do a little bit on fire investigations. It's gonna be for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, so I'm gonna use it as a improvement opportunity for the junior fire. Just so you know, children, or older. So, hope to see it. Speaking of the juniors, they're gonna be doing a car wash Sunday, June 9th as well, from like 9 to 12 in the morning, so get your vehicles washed. They're raising money for a field trip. I'm gonna be taking them to Boston. I'm gonna go visit a fire station down there, go out to dinner and see a few other things while we're in the city. And we're taking the train down, so it should be fun. Next Friday, June 7th is last day at Monmouth Academy. I'll have a few members that will be presenting scholarships. We've got several scholarships to hand out for the 2 scholarships that we did. And then the last thing I got is last Wednesday, we had Maine Cabin Masters in town filming museum property. Went really well. It was really a cool experience getting to work with the cast from that crew and see all the behind the scene things, takes and bloopers. Hopefully those don't make it, but it was all a good experience. Speaking of that project, they're gonna start renovations probably next week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. Start seeing some demo downtown. Not tearing the building down, just tearing it apart and renovate. So again, very exciting times. Try to respect their privacy. You know, that they might put a privacy fence up around. I noticed when we were trying to film, it was crazy. I almost got hit by a car, just trying to cross in the crosswalk. Just people out of control. Everybody's busy to go somewhere, not paying attention. So it would be good if they do fence it in for security and privacy and safety. They've got 12 weeks to complete the project, so we're hoping by September 11th, our 9/11 remembrance, we'll have the memorial park down there and be able to do that downtown and have an unveiling of the museum property at the same time. It's not going to be on the 11th, that's on Wednesday this year, so it'll probably be, I think I'm going to do it on a Saturday actually, because it's going to be a big event doing the unveiling of the museum property, 9/11 park, and the remembrance all together in one. So we'll probably do that on Saturday, September 7th. Hope you can join us for that. That's all I got, unless you have any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Uh, Next, select board reports.
Doug, are you still on department head reports?
Yes,
Hi, Julie.
Can I just go real quick?
you
Sure.
sure can.
Thanks. I just wanted folks to know that the library is gearing up for the annual summer reading program. And we are getting special events planned out, including bringing the OWL program from Chewonki. That's always a big hit. And on Saturday, July 13th, we're going to do the Bigfoot experience. We got a guy coming from New Jersey to tell us all about Sasquatch. We're just going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to have some summer reading for adults also, with the titles from the Read Me program, that's Read Maine, and NPR's All Books Considered, and more. So stay tuned. Everybody's aware that recent surveys have indicated that taxpayers want more recreational opportunities, and the library is responding by offering new and upgraded programs, especially for adults and seniors. And those include a bi-weekly fiber arts group, card and crafting sessions on every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday mornings, where we have snacks and just do whatever people feel moved to do. And then free weekly now yoga stretch sessions. And that's a lot of that is thanks to the underwriting by the Friends of the Library. They've been very generous. The library would also like to partner with the summer rec program at the beach to try some new things, such as maybe a story time at the beach, yoga, therapy dogs at the beach, maybe an adult swim and social time, that kind of thing. Also, in light of the town's recent decision to host a kayak rack at the boat launch, I'm wondering whether the library could include a kayak in its library of things collection. I'm thinking that borrowers might pick up the paddles and the PFDs at the library, along with a key or a key code for the kayak. My concerns would be someone to help me navigate whether the town would need a special insurance rider or some other considerations. So I may reach out to one or more of you to kind of help me wade through that. I think that's all I really had tonight. I wonder if anybody had any questions, just shout out or come see me at the library. That's all I had.
Any questions for Julie?
I think it's intriguing to entertain the possibility of having a kayak or canoe that's loanable. Julie, I would say that your question about legal liability is an important one, and I would talk to the town manager about that to follow up with our insurer to make sure that we are covered for liability. Generally, it's not with a paddleable boat. It's not usually that big a deal to insurance companies, but I would check with the town manager first.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
As you want to read that? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So this is Justin's report. And he apologizes for not being able to attend tonight's meeting, but he has a family obligation. But he's prepared this memo in his absence to address several issues that have been brought to his attention. The beach ordinance. The development of the beach ordinance was initiated last summer when the select board considered allowing non-residents to use the beach. Under the current ordinances, the select board does not have the authority to charge a fee for the use of the beach. This new ordinance was drafted similarly to town beach ordinances in our surrounding region. This ordinance will permit, after a public hearing, the select board to draft policies and rules that may allow non-residents to use the beach for a fee. The proposed ordinance does not have any impact on the Monmouth Beach Summer Program, its budget, or how it will be operated. Second, the Monmouth Beach Summer Program budget. During the development of this year's municipal budget, the select board decided to reduce the line related to the summer program from its $71,000 in fiscal year 2024 to $40,000 in fiscal year 2025. the discussion centered around the number of summer employees. For example, the town of Winthrop hires 7 people to staff their beach compared to Monmouth, which had 17 summer employees last year. The budget for the summer program splits the fiscal year. Monmouth's fiscal year or budget year runs from July 1st to June 30. The summer program begins incurring costs sometime in May, meaning that the money that was approved in last year's budget, 2023, funds the beginning of this year's 2024 program. The $40,000 the select board approved is sufficient funding to support all activities at the beach this summer if it is staffed at last year's levels. The budget would not be sufficient starting in May of 2025 unless certain costs were reduced. If the budget was funded at the current recommended level of $40,000, meaning Justin, he anticipates that the number of lifeguards and hours they worked would be reduced. Additional cuts would likely be the elimination of all day camp. It is my understanding that the select board always intended to maintain the swim lesson program. If warrant Article 12 recreation fails and Article 34 passes, the budget would revert to last year's level. Personnel issues. The select board, nor I, can or will comment on ongoing personnel issues. Employees are entitled to confidentiality, and it is illegal for the board or Justin to comment on any potential or ongoing personnel issues. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email, call, or schedule an appointment with Justin, and he'll do his best to answer them.
On to, select board report.
I've got one. We recently completed a volunteer milfoil survey in the Wilson Stream Delta in Anabescook Lake. And this is the place that was the original site for milfoil infestation and the area that is restricted for boat access. And there seems to have been a resurgence of milfoil in that area. So that it's made a comeback, not quite as bad as it was back in 2014 when we first discovered it, but certainly something that is going to require more intensive management. We're talking with the Friends of Copsey Watershed about exactly what that means, but it seems like they would like to consider all the tools in their toolbox in terms of sending in scuba divers for a week or two and using benthic barriers to prevent further growth and potentially using a retreatment of herbicide for that limited section of the lake. We'll see exactly how that would all come together. Not quite sure what the part of the plan is for that in terms of how to afford all of that, because there is quite a lot of expense there. But it's unfortunate news for the Wilson Stream area. And it's also unfortunate news that it seems like keeping the surface use restriction in place for now for that corner of the lake is sensible.
Did you survey other sections of the lake?
So that's an ongoing thing. We've got, I don't know, a group of 24 volunteers, all of whom have their own little portion of the lake to survey. Those are, when there's milfoil found in those areas, they're usually, you could count the plants on one hand as opposed to counting the acres of plants on one hand in this particular cove at the Wilson Stream. So usually those are fairly easy to manage and to keep under control when we do spot them. Those results probably won't be in until July for the entire lake, for every zone of the lake.
Well, that Hoyt Brook was another area which was,
Yep, don't know if that one's been surveyed yet. The good news is there's not a whole lot of people who want to go into Hoyt Brook. Maybe some neighbors, and that's pretty much it. The bad news is the surface area restriction down by the Wilson Stream is a pretty popular place for people who want to put their boats in. As usual, the carry-in boating can be done at the dam on the Jug Stream. And of course, we've got the new boat launch at the north end of the lake, which is there because of this infestation, because they wanted to divert traffic away from boats going through and chopping up plants into tiny little bits that would spread. Also, we don't yet have any news on our resiliency grant that we applied for to take a careful look at the Jug Stream Dam. The spillway in the Jug Stream Dam is the thing that we applied for with the resiliency grant, and that should be any day now that we would be hearing back on that issue. If you recall, we applied for a $50,000 grant to survey that dam and to do some analysis about getting better control over the water level so that we can release water more quickly if the rain keeps coming. I imagine we're going to have a list of things for the town manager to do at this meeting, and one of those ought to be on that list, ought to be the Trails Committee. We haven't heard anything about convening of the Trails Committee. I know we have 4 or 5 folks who we've approved to the Trails Committee, but we haven't had any phone calls from Jessica to get organized. So if we could put that on Justin's to-do list, please. And then lastly, we had a meeting of the Economic Development Committee last week. Not a whole lot of exciting things happening at the Economic Development Committee, other than a couple of interesting opportunities. Some local developers have been talking to Reagan LaRochelle, our consultant for the Economic Development Committee, and folks are expressing some interest in developing some housing on some larger parcels around Monmouth. So we don't have anything specific, but we all should be aware that we do have a TIF district, actually 2 of them now, that would allow the select board to participate if someone wanted to bring some, what was the type of housing that we are allowed to do? I think it's an apartment building.
yes.
That we
Right.
would allow, we would be allowed under the current TIF rules if to incentivize if someone were interested in building apartments. And so the interest is spurred by the need for affordable housing in this part of the state. When we get some specifics, we'll certainly keep folks informed, but I didn't want to sit on that one when people are talking to Reagan. And there's one parcel here on Main Street. There's another large parcel on 202 where folks are kicking the tires. And quite frankly, I think that's a good sign. That's a sign actually that the establishment of the 202 TIF district is working, because it is a large parcel that's within that TIF district that folks are interested in. So we seem to be sending the right signals to the marketplace to get people interested in investing.
And something else that you will be interested in is regards the $2 million from the state for our surface water program, North Monmouth. And
So we received an official award letter for $2 million.
Joel, who's the head of the water district, he's asking the select board to tentatively approve the funding from the state for the $2 million that has been committed from the surface water program. So, it's what Justin would like. Joel wants me to write him a note explaining what we've done, that we approve it or not. And so all I'm asking is that we have a formal approval. Yeah.
I'd make a motion for that we approve accepting the $2 million grant from the surface water program of the state.
I'll second that.
And just for the purpose, if for some of the folks who are hearing this for the first time, this is money that has been applied for because the select board set aside about $80,000 of our ARPA funding to do some feasibility and fundraising for providing a public water system to the residents of North Monmouth who are affected by PFAS in their wells. And so that was about 2 years ago that we set aside those funds. And this is the beginning of the results of the fundraising process. So we hired a grant writer to start applying for funding. As we understand it, it's a $7 million project. Going to be very expensive. In fact, if you're a resident of North Monmouth, please be patient with the condition of your roads. We're trying not to pave the roads in North Monmouth because we don't want to do that and then dig them up for a water main. So we've sort of put them on the back burner for a moment while we're letting the fundraiser do his job to see if we can find a way to afford supplying a water system to the residents of North Monmouth who want it. It's not a requirement. It would be an option for folks who live in North Monmouth. So it's encouraging to hear that we've got a big tranche. This follows a $500,000 tranche that was committed by Senator Collins at the last round of congressionally designated funding. So we're about $2.6 million the way there. And we've got some other opportunities in the pipeline for our funder to apply.
So I don't know who's going to be, somebody will be watching that, thinking, and it's,
Yeah, I think what happened last time when we didn't have an official minute person, Justin just watched or took notes and then did the minutes himself. So.
okay. So there's been a motion by Ken, second by Chris to approve the funding from the state for the surface water, from the surface water program. All those in favor? Thank you. Anything else from the select board? No. The next is public comment. Are there any people here who want to Ed,
Let Jan go first.
Want me to go first? I'm Janet Kalenda. I live in North Monmouth. For the past 45 years, I've lived in Monmouth. I've always considered the beach program as the most successful program in town, delivering a much-needed service to families in town, but especially the children. This is a four-part thing, so you don't have to answer the questions right away, but why did you decide to cut this program? Other than the cuts to the beach program, what other programs were reduced in this year's budget? And Justin touched upon my next question. Since the budget has now been finalized, is the only way to keep the beach program intact as it was this past year is to vote no on Article 12 and yes on Article 34? And if so, would you fully fund the beach program to the level it was last year if those articles passed in that way?
our intention was not to cut the beach program. Oh. Chris took part in it. I don't know if Mark did. I don't know about Joe. But I know my daughter, ever since she was a little kid, she's been going to the beach and taking part in the beach program. She became a lifeguard and then the director of the swim program. And so it's certainly not our intention to cut the program. We want it to exist for all the kids and anybody who wants to participate in it. So, and all we thought of doing was reducing the number of lifeguards that would be there. Because we had 17 people on the roll and we didn't see a reason to have so many.
Just a couple numbers here, because I went and pulled back the budget from 22, 23. It was at that point in time 42.9, and then the 23. So the actual 22, because I have to think about how these years run. 21, 22, and then 22, 23 was the actual budget was 41.7. And then for fiscal year 23, 24, it went to $70,688 for seasonal wages. So it was a 36% increase. So essentially, what this year ended up doing, going back to 40, was putting it back to the budget it always had been at. So
You must be, there must be something
Can I-
that you
can I-
added.
Can I add to this, please? So the reason.
the chair has to recognize
So
you.
the reason the budget was increased initially is because minimum wage. And at one point, we took a hit where minimum wage went from $7 to $12, and now it's at $14. So that's where you're getting your increase in budget from. The 17 guards does not apply to how much money you're gonna spend if we staff it the same. Now, there are 17 guards last year because I had guards that only worked swim lessons. I had guards that only worked 1 day a week. I had guards that only worked weekends. There were never 17 people on duty at one time. There were 2 staff on duty, 1 person at the gate, and myself doing other things. And there's 2 staff on duty in case of an emergency. We ran lifeguards on swim lesson days from 9 AM to 8 PM and on non-swim days from 10 AM to 8 PM. August, we cut back and we only were there till 7 PM because people weren't coming from 7 to 8 as it got colder and the sun went down sooner. Now, if you compare us to Winthrop, absolutely, we hire more kids. We also staff our beach more. They run a program 12 to 5. Their program also isn't very safe. They've had a lot of issues there. So if you're looking at safety and why we have multiple people, that is why. Now, you're talking about high school kids that have sports, multiple sports, because we're a small town, so they play summer soccer, summer basketball, summer baseball. They go on vacations with their parents. They wanna do stuff with their friends. So the kids don't wanna work 40 hours a week. They only wanna work 20, maybe 25 hours a week. So you have to have more kids in order to fill all of the time. It's not having 17 people on staff at once. And I think that's where the misconception is. Sure, you could get along with only having 6 like Winthrop. You'd have a lot of times that kids just don't show up. Sometimes they just don't show up, and something better came up and they didn't want to come to work that day. Well, I've tried that, but it doesn't, you're not allowed to. So that's why there were 17.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Andrea Horn. One of the things I'm seeing in the budget, where you're cutting the budget for the beach, but then you're asking the gate attendant in their job description is mowing of the grass, trash removal, weed whacking. That has always been the town crew's job to do that. Why is that being put towards that budget, towards beach, that's going to take away from that gate attendant paying attention to the other jobs that person has to do? When that has always been a town funded job, and from what I was told, that has not been taken away from the town crew.
So,
So some of these questions, I would imagine, we're going to need to make a list for the town manager. Because we're getting pretty deep into the technicalities of who's working when and whose job duties or what.
Well, it's all
That's
posted on the
what's
website.
described in the ordinance.
So I would suggest that maybe we could make a list of questions for the town manager to answer so that we can get very specific. We can get very specific and accurate answers and not just, us shooting from the hip or people hypothesizing on Facebook.
Also,
yes,
one more
Lisa.
thing, so other thing to remember, 4th of July party. We staff that, we've always staffed that. You need extra guards for that, for the hundreds of people that come. So that does play a part in our budget too, that one day where we are at the beach from 10 AM until 9, 10 o'clock. Helping the fire department with safety and cleanup and everything else, and that comes out of our budget too. So just be aware.
Instead of referring to 17 people, how many hours is there actually lifeguarding planned for 2 people? And how many hours can that $40,000 budget support?
So I do have that.
Yes.
Okay, so guarding from 9 AM to 8 PM is 11 hours, and that's times 2 is 22, times 7 days is 154 hours per week. At 9 weeks, it's 1,386 hours per the summer. At $16 an hour is what I averaged it at, because $14 is lowest minimum pay. It's $22,176. That's just to have lifeguards for the same amount of time. That's not any programs, that's no swim lessons, that's it. Is it feasible at that 40,000? You'd have to make some cutbacks. I had very bare minimum of lifeguards at those times. His gate attendant that he had posted online for that job, and it came to $42,000 for the 9 weeks of summer. Is what I came out to based off of what we've done in years past. That took out camp, and it was 6 weeks of swim lessons.
Can I make a comment about the camp?
There's a lady here who's
Yeah,
thinking of raising her
I
hand.
did. I just had a quick question. I heard you say that total number was for the town, right? For all of the maintenance of the town. How much of that is the beach? And how much of that is the other things happening in town, such as your people mowing lawns at the cemetery, your road crews, your other pieces of that? How much of that increase is because of the beach and how much of that increase is because increased wages for other areas of the town that we're not talking about right now. So out of that total
Question
number
for
you
the-
gave.
I think it's another one of those questions for the town manager to answer accurately, specifically. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I just wanted to mention, made me think about the camp. I want to remind you, as far as not having the summer camp, splash camp, which we've only gone down to one the last couple of years. That splash camp for a lot of kids, and we all know that Monmouth is a lower economic community. That's their summer camp. There's a lot of kids in this community that don't go to overnight camps, they don't go to sports, camps, not a that. Going to that camp is the first time they get in a kayak, the first time they hold a fishing pole. That's what they base their camp childhood experience on. If you don't have that, there's a whole slew of kids that don't have a camp experience.
Yes.
It's also one of the only camps that the RSU special ed director will fund your child to go to.
I also kind of along the line of those camps, I know myself, my child, when she was young, she benefited from those. Huge, like, it's a huge resource for our kids. Not only is it teaching them safety and giving them the opportunity to socialize with their peers and be a part of the community that they're living in. But it also, I was that parent. I couldn't afford camp. Do you know what happened? I sent a message to the beach. That beach message went to Lisa, who then said, you know what? I would rather us take a cut on you paying for that and know that your child is safe and knows how to swim, and we decrease the risk of somebody drowning. That is a huge thing. As a parent, I don't know how many of you have children that are here in the town. Doug, I know your grandkids are here. I know they've been down to the beach. They learn to swim down there too. This is a huge asset for our community, and cutting that is also increasing the risk that our children are put at risk. And I think that conversation needs to happen.
And did you want to say something?
I have a couple of questions. Don't feel I'm picking on any of you because I consider every one of you a friend. So first of all, what's the governing body of the town of Monmouth?
Town meeting.
What?
The town meeting.
Town meetings. Then how come the website says the selectmen are the governing body of the town of Monmouth? The selectmen are the administrative body of the town of Monmouth and can only act on what is passed by town meeting. I have questions on the two ordinances. Ordinances have to be approved by the governing body unless the governing body gave that right to someone else to approve those ordinances. I sincerely hope that you have made sure that the beach ordinance and the change to the road ordinance, the governing body gave that right to the administrative body. If not, something's gonna happen someday, and you're gonna have to defend it in court and a lot of money. Now, the other, pardon?
Well, when we,
Doug, I have a hard time hearing in here. I think that we should put everybody on Zoom. The only time I can hear is when Zoom's on.
so when we, put these on the warrant as articles,
Are they on the warrant as
Yes.
articles?
Yes, they are.
Okay, then the governing body has a chance to say yes or no.
That's right.
yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
That's right.
Right, now, the last thing is, this town's getting to the point that a lot of the old people who made this town what it is can no longer stay here. If a great amount, if everything passes, a great amount of these old people are gonna have a 25% increase in taxes. It's time to stop funding things that make you feel good and get back to what we need. And a good feel-good examples right over there of wasted money. We need, yes, a sand and salt shed. We've had for 50 years needed that to help the road crew. My other real complaint is, I think the TIF fund I have a favorite description of it that I call it a certain away fund with a little not so nice word in front of that. That's tax money, folks. That should go in the general fund. We should stop that. Put the money in the general fund. If there's a project that you people feel is deserving, bring it to the town meeting, bring it to the governing body. As it is right now, there's tons of money going out all over places that nobody knows the results. So let's start getting back to good, sound fiscal policy. And my last thing is, we need to go back to open town meeting, because all of these people, and I feel sorry for them, they don't teach civics in school anymore, so they don't really know how town government operates. You make the statement, if you vote down the beach budget, Article 34, funding is at the discretion of the administrative body. It's not mandated. It's just allowed. So if I were sitting on that board and you vote down that article, I would say you don't want it. And you've lost the program. Then if you do that, your only thing that you could do is ask for a special town meeting to restore funding. The only way you could do that is a massive amount of signatures on a petition. So think about it.
So Ed, I think I want to make sure that everyone understands the sequence, the potential sequence of events. If Article 34 is voted down,
No, it's not Article 34. It's-
Article 12.
Article 34 is the last one.
Yeah.
forgive me, Article 12, if Article 12 is voted down and Article 34 is voted up, then the budget line for Article 12 would revert to the previous fiscal years. No, it doesn't go to zero, because that's in Article
Read
34.
Article 34 again. It does not mandate, it allows.
Okay, it allows the select board the discretion
Yes.
to fully fund Article,
What I've heard here,
the
there are no cuts in
existing,
the current, you get the current,
Operated last year's.
in the current operating
Another-
budget, there are no
another
cuts.
budget is.
and
You
it
could
would,
solve the problems for next year in the next budget.
we could also we could also call another election
Yes,
with one article.
yes,
That's possible
could.
too.
yes, you could.
You know, the reality, I think you're absolutely right in recognizing that the reality of this select board is that we are the executive branch and that we work for the legislative branch.
Okay.
And the
thank you.
legislative branch are the voters and citizens of Monmouth.
But I think it's why you need to go back to open town meetings, so people start getting a better flow of information. If they don't want to give up a Saturday to go, you've given up your right. That is your choice.
Yeah.
But when we had open town meeting, articles got discussed one by one. And depending on how it was written, you could increase or decrease. If it was written to raise the sum of, raise and appropriate the sum of, you cannot increase, you can only decrease. If it's written to raise or appropriate for that particular article, then underneath it would say selectmen recommends. In that case, you could get up and make a motion for any amount of money. And it's too bad because.
Go ahead, I just would like to be next if I.
That's really all I have. I just, I get upset when I think that the governing body's rights are being overridden.
Look, Ed, you know, I agree with you that we should restore the town meeting.
Pardon?
I agree with you that we should restore the town meeting.
Yeah.
It was a tragedy that we ended it. We had less people coming, but they were better informed. Now we have more people voting, but they don't know what they're voting on
That's right.
because no one stands up and says, wait a minute.
And the other thing is you very carefully package the articles, so there's something in there that everybody wants, so they have to vote for a whole bunch of things they don't want to get what they want.
We try not to do that, really.
I know, but the town managers, we've had a series of town managers.
Actually,
in the last few
Ed,
years.
I take exception with that observation. We just 3 meetings ago broke apart all of the bond issues so that people can pick and choose what they would like to borrow money to do in the town.
Well, you have to do the bond issues individually by law.
No, actually, we don't. And in fact, the town manager suggested that we do it all at one time, and the observation was made that perhaps voters are gonna have a differing opinion on one bond issue or another. So the police chief was very upset with me when I said, oh, sorry. Your lease to own agreement has to go on an up or down thing as a separate issue. As well as there are 3 or 4 other ones that voters will be considering. So I take exception with the statement that we package things to make it easy to say yes and hard to say
I
no.
apologize to this board, but previous boards are very carefully packaged them, so you were forced to, if you wanted to keep something you really wanted, you had to vote for a whole bunch of stuff you'd like to cut.
And to go, I just,
Mr. Chair, I think we might want to just,
yes, ma'am.
I would just say, part of me does agree that I like the idea of going back to town meeting, because I think part of the problem that happened here is that we, as members of the town, weren't tuned in and didn't hear and didn't know the discussion that was happening back in February. So I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that we are embarking on a comprehensive planning moment. And the fact that this decision to make this cut in a way that a broad group of people were not aware of in town ahead of that comprehensive planning discussion feels out of sync. So that didn't feel good as members of the town. So being engaged, being involved is important. And I just had written a few things about the beach itself. I won't reiterate what other people have said, but I just wanted to say that, you know, the beach programming that's been continuous for all generations of people, older and younger, has been really important. And I will also say that Monmouth there's a reason that Monmouth has not struggled like other communities to staff its beach. And that's because of the training program and the funding for that training program that goes above and beyond what a swim lesson program is. We're training the guards here and they're working here. And so we have them at our fingertips. Those guards that are being trained here are saving lives at Mechuana. They're saving lives at the KVYMCA. And I feel like that's something in Monmouth to be proud of, not something to cut. And I think we're here now because we know about this change, and you can expect to see us at future meetings where these conversations are happening. So, you know, in some ways it's a wake-up call that we need to be present here for a program that is not that much money compared to a lot of the other expenditures that we're voting on in this warrant article, or in this, in the town warrant. So I think that's critical. I also just want to say that in the future, there are vehicles to reach us. You know, we know we're not necessarily coming here as our representatives. We would really appreciate it if you used I know Doug posts minutes on Facebook, but Monmouth moms and dads, Monmouth community citizens, if you let us know that you're talking about cutting the beach budget to this degree, and I know it's not affecting this year, you know, it's next year. Okay, I get that, but I still think it matters for you to hear from us about the things that matter to us. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Pamela, you're totally right. Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to ask you guys to reconsider, and the town to reconsider, looking at the safety issues of cutting some of these programs. You not only are looking at cutting the beach program, and for those of you that don't know, I'm the former animal control officer for the town. one of the reasons that I got done was because of the lack of pay. I would put in 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week for very, very minimal pay. And now it's gotten to the point where I couldn't afford that. I got done with that job, and now because there's no animal control officer in this town and they're not being paid good enough to have an animal control officer, it's affecting the safety of this town as well as cutting the funding of the beach program. So I worked, I don't know how many nights, I was called out at midnight, required to stay out. I made $130 every 2 weeks. No gas, no phone, no mileage, no nothing.
Budget line.
And then there's a rabies in town. The people in this town have the right to know where that rabid raccoon was located. Without funding people for the safety of this town is becoming an issue. Because I've been in a town with animal control. We had an epidemic of rabies. First rabies sighting, that was posted all over town. That is a safety issue because the budgets keep getting cut and the appropriate funding isn't going to the appropriate places. And I think that's a major issue with this town right now. My son, when he was of age or underage, the only reason he was allowed to go to that beach is because of the lifeguarding program that Lisa developed in this town. I don't even like him going down there as an adult without the lifeguards in this town. If this town votes to cut that budget down to what they're saying, that safety of these little kids down there, that's a liability suit for the town. Somebody's going to get hurt. And it's because everybody's looking at putting money into a building that's going to raise the taxes of this town instead of the safety of our community. And I've been outraged about this whole thing for a long time. I've been outraged at the pay that I received through this town for the job that I did.
But on the budget that we vote on, the animal control line is always over $8,000. You take her salary, it didn't touch it.
You have to pay the shelter.
No, that's a separate one.
That's a separate line.
That's a separate line.
So where's that money? Where did all that money go to that took away from my child and the safety of this community? Now the police department is being asked to pull away from their jobs to go do a job that's supposed to be funded by our budget. A separate line. The PD shouldn't have to do that. And you're not going to get an animal control officer in this town for the safety of this town at the pay that's being offered. Because I will not come back for the pay I was getting. And I spent 7 years. Becky. I
Ask, my dog's been in the back of a dog car before.
I knew almost every single dog in this town. But I wasn't paid good enough, and the safety wasn't important enough for this town to handle that.
Thank
And
you.
that, I feel that's the same thing going on with the beach.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to, my name's Becky Grant. I live on Wilson Pond. My daughter has gone to the beach program for quite a while now. And I just want to say, a couple of weeks ago, when it was a warm day, I happened to just go down to the beach just to go check things out, and because I hadn't been down there for a while. There were like, I don't even know, maybe 40 kids in the water. Nobody was watching them. And I'm not saying it was a safety issue at that point, but it was actually a corral issue at that point, because there's kids down there with no parents. I don't care, like if they were 10, 12, 15. You've got kids raising hell down there at the Monmouth Beach, and nobody is down there to take care of them because parents don't care. I know that was before we get lifeguards down there, you know what I mean? Because it's not that time of year yet, but if that doesn't happen, the fire department's gonna get calls, the police department's gonna get calls, kids are gonna, rescue's gonna get calls. There might be a fight that breaks out down there with some high school kids. I mean,
There was a machete.
You just
at the
don't
Winthrop
know.
Beach last summer. Somebody got sliced with a machete.
you just don't
This
know.
is what we're gonna have in Monmouth.
Jan?
When you decided to cut the beach budget in half, What is it that you thought you were gonna be cutting out? You planned to cut the afternoon program, the camp? Is that what you were hoping to?
I think the camp was.
So you guys all decided that you didn't want the camp anymore?
Well,
There was nobody here to discuss it with.
Why did you even think that was something that should be cut?
Because the 35% increase, I think that was part of the discussion. But I think, the fact that there was nobody here for input, plus the fact that it was being staffed with lifeguards until 8 o'clock at night. And it was the rainiest summer on record. So I think that, those were the discussion.
Have we been making adjustments for weather? I mean, do we staff in inclement weather when no one's there?
So unless it's thunder and lightning, and even at that point, we do keep one guard on for safety reasons, because you're not supposed to swim in thunder and lightning. So, yes, there's always a guard on. On a rainy day, we wouldn't have 2 guards, we'd have 1. I would cut back. There weren't always 2 guards. There were 2 people there, yeah, because we had to have a gate attendant, because that's what we were told, was to stop non-residents from coming in. So can't do that without having person there. And if someone comes to swim, gotta have a lifeguard, can't just have a gate attendant. Okay, it's Maine. It rains on and off. You can't decide it rains at 9 o'clock and you are gonna cut lifeguards for the day. We still ran all of our swim lesson programs from 9 until noon for 6 weeks. We didn't cut those. We ran them in the evening as well, whether it rained or not. The whole reason we had lifeguards till 8 o'clock, if you remember, back in 2006, I think it was, we got done at 6 o'clock, and at 6:02, there was a 15-year-old boy who dove off the first dock and broke his neck. And he became paralyzed from the neck down and lost his life. He just couldn't do anything. And we presented to the select board at that time, and that's when they increased it till 8 o'clock for the safety of our children. Not because I don't like working till 8 o'clock at night. But I do it for the town, it's the safety, and we are smart about it. We, in come August, when it windows down, we cut back till 7 o'clock. When kids go back to college, it cuts down. The gate attendant was only there, we only had them there from 10 until 5. Sometimes it was 6 during the busy season. We didn't have multiple people there. Yeah, 2 guards, absolutely. It's a safety issue. Can't perform a rescue by yourself in a lake. Can't do it. It's not safe enough. It's not feasible.
Thank you. You want to go in at 5 minutes?
I'm curious, do we
Can
have
you
some,
identify yourself?
my name is Lisa Jordan.
How many kids did you have in camp last year? How many kids the year prior? How many families will be impacted if this program is cut?
Don't know that off the top of my head.
I think that that's a really important thing that we need to take into consideration. Is there a cost? Sure, but how many families are gonna be impacted by that? And my kids are grown. My girls went through that camp years ago and it was memorable. Swimming lessons are vital to our kids.
My kids didn't get to participate because they didn't have the flexibility at work. So my kids learned at family camp, but they probably would have been a whole lot better off learning in Lisa's program than having my husband and I yelling at them, trying to teach them and get them to learn. I think it's really important as our elected officials to think about the impact to the families when you're making these decisions. $40,000 for a program that's gonna impact.
I'd like to know how many families are gonna be impacted, but we're willing to dump in hundreds of thousands of dollars in a building that most of our, certainly these kids that are gonna be impacted by this program have no connection to a building that is going to provide no income, no revenue, no return on investment to our community. So I would be curious, Lisa, if we could connect, in a day or two. I'm curious. I want to know how many of our taxpayers or how many of our parents are going to be impacted by this proposed cut.
We're not planning to cut program, the swim program. And
But the summer
We're gonna
camp,
try to-
the summer camp is where
Gonna
you're
be
thinking
cut.
you're gonna get it next year.
It does impact this year though, because it's halfway through the summer. It starts July first.
Justin said it would be
So-
the summer program.
Yeah, it will affect this summer.
Allison,
I'm Allison Angel, sorry. My perspective is very close. If you're at the beach, you look at the greenhouse with basketball hoop, that's me. My backyard looks at the beach, or I look at an outhouse and a boat sign, but basically 14 years I've lived here. If you build it, they will come. And during this time, I've watched the development of the pavilion and the change house and the playground and the sidewalks and the renovations. It's popular. We have more people. You talk about uptick in the prices, the budget and how much more and how much more. It's gone, it's blossomed from when Quinn was a baby and I took her for her first lessons to how many people use that place now. I would expect that budget to go up. I'm not surprised. I mean, obviously maybe some fine tuning, there may have been some over, that's for you guys to work out. For Justin as a town manager to work out with his employee, be cutting it in half. I go out there at nighttime and there are people swimming after they're gone. I see people during the night. I see people early in the morning. I see older people. We're talking about kids. I'm an older person. I don't want to have a cramp and go down. Okay, there's a broad perspective of the whole town that uses that beach. It is, and we're talking about just the beach time, this place is used year round. This is the high point. We're talking about those kids that were there the hot day last week in the 50s. My daughter was one of them. Out there playing chicken with her friends. My husband was down there with my son and he came back and told me about it. Okay, you get a hot night, we close the beach now at 5 o'clock and the guards go home and you have those hot summer nights and that place is gonna be packed. I won't even get into the out of town people. That's another discussion. You guys already heard me a couple of times on that. I never thought would become having this conversation right now.
Steve,
Doug, as I'm looking around this room, I think everyone here is in support of restoring the beach program to its previous state. And I think if you checked around our town, you'd have overwhelming support to do the same. So the question I have to the board, at this point, I think you've heard enough. Will you do everything to restore it to its former state? Or are you gonna persist with trying to cut the program? The whole program. Obviously, there are cuts to be made, you have made them, but will you do everything possible to restore it? Or do you agree with what you've done so far?
Well, Steve, I want to ask you a question. You made a Facebook posting about the tax raises there's a tremendous pressure on us to keep taxes as low as possible. Tremendous pressure. And you're part of the pressure. So.
Well, let me just say, this beach program is peanuts.
Yeah.
And this program is supported by the people want it and the children need it. I'm gonna speak in a little while about that building over there. No one needs that. I know some people want it, but the town doesn't need it and it should be scratched. So my question goes back to, and I think we could satisfy the crowd here, will the board do whatever is possible to restore it? I think that's the sentiment of the people, the town, or are you gonna persist with your planned cuts?
It seems to me, I'm sorry, go ahead. You haven't.
To kind of partially answer your question, it's great to see everybody here. And we wish every time we had a public hearing for a budget, we would see this many people that would come in and put their input, because we're just trying to do what the townspeople want. And like Joe said, trying to keep taxes low is a priority for a lot of people. After that public hearing is done for that particular department, that is voted on and gets put on the warrant. So once the warrant is written, which it is, and it's too close to the election now, there's nothing that we can do as a board to change what that question is on the warrant. We can't change any.
I understand that.
Those are the only ones that can.
Do you all feel that's already been done? I understand, but going forward, is it your intention to restore the program?
So Steve,
In some way possible. I know there's the budgets are all, the warrant articles are written, but That's my question.
Yeah, so it's not possible, I mean, we've already started voting, right? There's absentee ballots. There are absentee ballots that are already in circulation, so we can't change the warrant. What we can do is make a commitment to do what the voters tell us to do, which is kind of like, you know, a representative democracy. So if Article 12 fails and Article 34 is successful, then that would seem to me, in my opinion, and I can't speak for the other four here, but in my opinion, that would seem to me that that indicates that the voters are instructing the select board to restore the funding to what it was previously.
Hopefully you don't say that it means that we don't want a beach program. You know, that like Ed was saying, that when you vote something down, you know, I mean, I hope you get the message that if we
Well,
vote it down, it really means we want it.
But our intention was never to do away with the beach program, at least as far as I'm concerned. I don't think any of us
But you cut
wanted
it
to
in
do
half.
away with it.
How
We're
could you
just
have it
trying
if you
to-
cut it in half?
We're just trying to reduce the costs for the town. But, because we didn't have a lot of information that has been presented tonight when we were debating this and we were doing the rec budget and unfortunately, you know,
I just found out 2 weeks ago on Facebook. I don't know, I guess I'm out of touch with what's going on. I don't have kids.
Well, everything is posted on the town website, what the agenda is a week in advance. If people want to know what our agenda is, it's all on there. The budget schedule is on the town website. Everything is on there. We will never post things to any other page as it is not up to us to spoon feed information. I mean, if I want to find something out about the federal government, I don't expect the president to mail me a letter. I mean, I'm going to research it myself.
We don't have reporters in our select board meetings to help inform us about.
And
the
everything
topics.
is on the everything is on the town website with a schedule and an agenda. And that will be on there. That is how it is done. And Doug graciously posts the post-op of the meetings on the Facebook page. But the information is out there and you have to be an educated voter to do your homework and understand that. So
I think some of the intent was to just try to bring it back in line somewhere near where it had been. Because the years leading up to last year's budget, it had been 40,000, 41,000, 42,000, and then we had the jump to 70. We were just thinking, I think it was like, get it back somewhere where it used to be. And we know that, you know, wages went up. And if you've got 1,500 hours at the beach and the minimum wage went up $3 or $4 an hour, it still doesn't equate to $30,000. So
We also need to spend $7,000.
there's a whole bunch of people. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I'm hearing.
Can you identify yourself?
Caroline. I'm hearing a lot of people, obviously, the majority of us, I would say, are here because we want to see this stay intact. I hear we're cutting the budget, we're cutting the budget, we're cutting the budget, but at what cost? Because I hear this as a price tag on the safety of our children, and personally, I think that's kind of unacceptable that we're having that discussion, that the safety of our children is nothing more than a budget cut.
Mrs. Blunden.
So two things, to speak to the February meeting, I don't know how many actually went back and watched that meeting. It was not put out that the beach budget was even going to be discussed. It was kind of an around the back sort of thing that was done. Joe Fletcher was asked questions. Kristen and the town manager kind of went back and forth throwing numbers out. That's where the 40,000 comes from. I would encourage all of you to go watch that meeting. It was not pulled from figures or hours or anything of the sort. If you wanted real data, you should have gone to who had the information. Joe Fletcher has not run the beach program in how many years? In the 14 years I've lived in town, he hasn't run it. So I feel like that was not done with the best interest of the town. or to inform us. Just like this beach ordinance that kind of, you had to look and call the town office to find out where it was on the town website, because it's not out there in plain sight. So you can sit there and say that we have to be more informed. You as a select board should be doing your job to represent us and giving us the information. You can mass mail us surveys, you can mass mail questionnaires. Why can't we put that out?
Allison,
But another point about the budget and this big jump, and first meeting about the camp, this is the only camp my son Jack has ever gone to. COVID happened, there was no camp. COVID, the next year happened, there was no camp. Next year, still no camp because it's not enough staffing. Last year was the first time we had camp since 2019. Between that year having the camp last year and the uptick in the minimum wage, that could be a lot of your budget right there. I don't. You know, that's.
So I hear you, and that seems like a pretty reasonable observation. What troubles me is theories about, you know, theories about malfeasance. We operate in a fishbowl on this select board. There is nothing that we can't even have a conversation, three of us at one time. It is illegal for us to do that. Not legal. We have the meeting at the meeting. We don't do secret deals. We don't do anything that is not made public. And in fact, since I've served on this board, we have been militant about making sure the agenda is posted in ample time for anyone who wants to attend in person. They attend in person. The fact that you can watch the meeting on the video is testimony to the transparency of this select board. Anyone can come in here, as you are doing tonight, and say what is on their mind within reason, as long as it's respectful. And if you can't make the meeting and you can't make the Zoom, then you can watch the video after the fact and call us with your impressions. Absolutely, we operate above board, and I have to say, as a, you know, the members of this select board are doing this job for way less than minimum wage. When you actually add in the time that we spend either here at the meetings or answering constituents. It's not the money that we're doing this for. Okay, we're doing this to serve the community because we are trying to do our best to serve the interests of the town. And it is troubling to me to hear anyone insinuate that there's some shenanigans going on with the select board in terms of making decisions outside of the watchful eye of the public. This is what we do. This is the procedure that we have used in this case. I appreciate folks coming tonight to tell us that they disagree. That's perfectly great. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. And we have already educated folks on, if there is a disagreement on this particular issue, how you need to vote, so that we will get the message as the executive branch of the town, what needs to be done to reflect the opinions of the voters. And I think I would suggest that if you're upset by this particular sequence of events, that perhaps you should be watching us on Zoom if you can't come in person, or watching the video after the fact, and then calling us to ask questions. Because we can fix stuff. We do it all the time. When people bother to reach out and say, hey, this is not right.
Ed?
Be careful on this voting down Article 12 and thinking that Article 34 is going to rescue you. If Article 12 goes down, it may be because the people in town don't want it. that's a, more than slight possibility. As I sit in the morning and have coffee with different people, there are people who are worried about keeping their property. I know a few years when my wife and I both got sick and we almost lost our property, what people are going through. So if it's a narrow no, I would say probably the people in town are split 50-50.
So Ed, I have a
If it's a
suggestion.
major no, then why are you going to override what the people in town said they don't want?
I have a
Now,
suggestion
please
for
don't
you.
think I don't want the swimming program.
There is a way for voters to express an opinion if they don't want the swimming program, and that would be
No.
vote no on 12 and vote no on 34.
Well.
So you can do that, and then we will,
That,
if that happens,
34 affects all articles.
that's correct. So what we would have to do is spend a substantial amount of town resources, having another election.
I always vote no on Article 34 so that
There you go.
if people want to get rid of something, they have the ability to do it.
Okay.
Article 34 lets the will of the people be overridden by a few on the executive.
Well, and then we'll just go through the budget process all over again, and we'll see you at that hearing.
You're right.
Can I ask a question,
Sure, yes.
follow-up question, which is,
Yeah,
so.
you identify yourself.
Oh, sorry, Rebecca. So say whatever happens, right? But understanding that there is money in the budget through this summer. What is our next vehicle to add funding so that we have enough money for the next of the biennial budget that we need to be funding for 2025, end of, basically 2025 summer? Do you know, or is that something you could put on the list for the town manager? Like, can we?
We could definitely put it on the list for the town manager. There are two vehicles. One would be another election, right? Where we could ask the voters to approve an additional funding.
Okay.
Another would be, assuming, I'm not sure the article number, but there is an article in there that allows the select board to adjust budgets by 10%. So we could add in, we'd have to transfer it for some other place. It would need to come from some other department. But there is a provision for a 10% transfer that's part of the collection of articles. Which would allow us to do 10% of the previous year, I think, so it'd be $7,000. And then the third thing would be to figure out ways during the bridge of fiscal years to pay the bills late or something.
Then in February, we start all over again.
Yep.
Not this February, but the next February.
Well, in February.
In this coming
February.
It's coming February.
We will start all
the
over.
process again.
It's not a 2-year budget. It is a fiscal year budget. It is,
It's just that this department
it's a.
Oh,
fiscal
bridges
year.
over 2
It's-
fiscal years.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to say, we have the best beach facility in Central Maine, I believe. We have the best beach program in Central Maine. It doesn't compare to Reed Field or Winthrop or any place else you mentioned. We have the best. And Lisa is the best waterfront director. Just gonna say that. We have the best. So let's just keep it. Let's not mess with the best thing we have to offer.
So personally.
Where were all you people?
We didn't have a
Time is
time, so we didn't know.
Personally, I mean, I grew up going to that beach, riding my bicycle there, taking swimming lessons there. Mrs. Chesley taught me swimming lessons. I spent every day of the summer there. I taught swimming lessons there. I took my lifeguarding certificate there. I lifeguarded there. And I didn't, in 1982, I didn't even get paid. I volunteered and I lifeguarded. And I worked with 2 folks from Manchester that ran the program. And that was the entirety of the program. These 2 Marana graduates and myself. So you're preaching to the choir when you talk about how important swim lessons are. I did it. I taught it. I was there. And it was never our intention to cut the swim program.
Can I address something else? I hear a sentiment against the budgeting of the repair or the restoration of the old academy. And I think I would ask Kristen to explain that there was a previous town meeting that approved it. What would the consequence be? We're still paying a debt on it, right?
So in let me get my years straight here, 2020, we came up with a budget to appropriate 1.7 and $200,000 of that came from the sale of the Cottrell School. So essentially we borrowed 1.5 and that was approved in 2021 by the town to remove the 1950s additions in the gymnasium and the back portion of the gymnasium. And so that was approved by the voters of the town to do that and restore the academy with the intention to use it as a meeting place for voting, for recreation, to play cards and have cribbage games or whatever wants to happen in there, to be able to use it as a place to have baby showers. It'll have a catering facility. It'll have a catering kitchen, and you'll be able to have continuing education, lunch and learns there. Multiple things can happen there, and it can also generate revenue, just like we generate revenue with Humston Hall. People will be able to rent the facility to have showers, weddings, you name it, it can happen there. And that was appropriated, but as time went on and they started doing the renovation and the increases in labor and construction costs, it became apparent that we weren't going to reach a certificate of occupancy with that initial budget. So what we've always said is, for the want of a toilet, to be able to flush a toilet, you need to have a toilet for a certificate of occupancy. We would not get the project to that point. So we would have a building that we were paying for from that initial borrow that we would not be able to use, but we're paying for it. So the choices are to appropriate the money to finish the project, $700,000 bonded. And then we'll finish the project and be able to go in and use it. If we don't appropriate that money, we're sitting there looking at a building that we're paying for that initial loan, but not able to enter into it and use it because it would not have plumbing facilities. So that is the story with Monmouth Academy. If you want to know intimate details about that building, I have them because I've sat at every single meeting there has been and spent an amount of time with the general contractor and architects and all of that. Yes.
Do we know if the 700,000 will completely finish it?
Yes, because the
No kitchen, no use of the second floor, no use of the basement.
So the second floor, we made a decision not to spend $100,000 for an elevator because we would have needed an elevator in a public building, just like they had to put into Cumston Hall, to enter the second floor. That didn't make sense for 900 square feet. So we decided to use the second floor as the mechanicals area. So all the mechanicals for heating and cooling will be on the second floor. That was a tiny space to begin with. It was a very tiny space. And the basement will be usable. It will have a treatment in there to, that basement is essentially as dry as any basement in Maine, and more so than the majority of people in Monmouth that have sump pumps running most of the time. So that basement, the only area that will need any sort of treatment is the treatment underneath the area that's granite underneath the library, the main meeting space. But the basement will be usable for storage, and we'll be able to store tables or anything like that on the second, in the basement area. Because the home economics area, we left the concrete slab there to be able to have an outdoor seating and dining area. So any tables we had that we had out there will be able to be stored in the basement, and it will be accessible from the outside. There will be a door there where there always was a door that they pitched coal into, so.
So the 700,000 will completely finish.
So from having the general contractor or our construction manager, Nickerson and O'Day, we worked with them and came up with a number to get it to completion and a certificate of occupancy. And then we'll be able to use that building to vote in, to have events there, to have recreation programs. I mean, there's a multitude of things that can happen in that building.
So then the answer.
According to the town manager, he says that it will, if you have a $300,000 valuation on your property, it will raise your taxes by $30 to do that. And the same with the salt shed. If you, it'll be another $30 if you vote in favor of building a sand salt shed, for if you $300,000 valuation. And I know that Steve, I was ambushed by a Channel 13 reporter, and and Steve was behind this, all this, and Steve got the final word in that interview. Anyway, so, and I know your figures are a little different, because your figure, I mean, I know this, the town manager has said that it will be, the total cost for this project will be $1 million because of, it'll be over 20 years. So we'll be paying that, you'll be paying that $30 if you have that house for 20 years for your taxes. And
I'd like to respond.
yes, Steve, you'd like.
Okay. I came here actually to discuss Article 25 Academy project. Before I do, a couple of things came up. One, I was always in favor of going to referendum voting rather than open town meeting. And the simple answer to that one is when we had town meeting where you had to show up and vote, we'd get about 125 voters on average. A lot of people didn't want to go. They didn't want to get up and vote against the police department or the schools. So they felt intimidated. So the first year we did it, we got about 900 people show up. So my question is, why would those 775 people who are now voting choose to go back to something where they don't feel comfortable voting? So I think that's why it's remained popular. First, I want to thank Justin. A few weeks ago, I ran into a few selectmen and I had some questions about what the tax increases was and about this building over here. And I've contacted him and he's been very informative. He gave me some concise information. When I got the numbers, I said, these are numbers, can I use them? He says, yes. I've contacted him through email, quick to respond. He said, yes, those are the numbers you can go with. So I've been getting some good information. He's very good. I appreciate that. One thing I was concerned about this year, I think when I swept you, I said, we always have a meeting where it's a warrant is presented, each article is written and everyone gets to make comments about what's in an article, then we know how to vote. But what didn't happen this year, I know you had a budget meeting, but we never had that meeting. And I'm kind of disappointed. It was a great time to really get more information about each budget article. So this year, it looks like we're having the largest tax increase ever, perhaps in this town. According to the numbers that I got from Justin, the tax increase for the average taxpayer is going to be anywhere from 10.4 to 13.2. And then, as I pointed out, if anyone over 65 took advantage of that program that froze their taxes for a year, they're going to get another 9.8. This is what Justin told me. So there are some people in town who are going to get a 20% tax increase. And I know you like to try to throw these numbers that make, oh, it's only $30 there and $30 there to try to sell the budget out. I did this one. If you have a $278,000 home, you're over 65, you took care of that program, your taxes the last time you paid were $5,031. Well, they're going to go up $1,006 to over $6,000. So that's what people are really thinking about. They're not thinking, oh, a little 30 here, a little 30 there. There's some people in town that are going to have their taxes go up over $1,000. So Article 25, the Academy project over here, I look at it is, I've heard this comment that, oh, we have to keep funding it because, you know, we can't just leave it there. Well, there's a thing called, do you want to throw good money after bad? And I think that's what that project is about. So, you know, it's just not weird. The original project failed. You know, 3 years ago, we borrowed 1.5 million plus 200,000. And there was a little caveat with that. It said the actual amount borrowed may be reduced by fundraising and grants. That kind of implied that it wouldn't even take all that money. But it apparently did, and the project has really turned into a failure. Now you want another 700,000 go into debt for 25 years at very high interest rates. It's really become something that's unaffordable. And a lot of these other projects that they're talking about time will get wiped out. They won't be able to afford them in the future. So I have questions. So once this project started, when did the committee who were planning it know they went over budget? And when did they have a meeting with the selectmen? Now, this would have been a big deal. That all of a sudden this project, you're running out of money, you can't finish it. That seemed like it should have been a very open meeting where there was much discussion. Where do we go next? And with the selectmen at that point, did you say stop it or just continue spending and potentially wasting all the money? They're asking for 700,000 this year. I watched some of the videos of the group that's planning this, and they talk about the architects actually told them it was going to take anywhere from 790,000 to 960,000 to finish it. So are we going to come back a third time if the 700 is not enough? And are those numbers right? Did the architects actually advise them that it was going to take more than this 700 to finish it? You know, there's a thing out there. It says, I listened to the meeting and I heard those numbers thrown out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, there's a thing saying out there, you know, fool me once, it's your fault, fool me, it's my fault. I think it's time to stop fooling us on this here. Not much talk about the annual upkeep of that building. This be another Compton Hall with over 100,000 and all kind of maintenance things continuously. That's gonna prevent us from having a good beach program, perhaps. And the legal capacity of the building. I understand they have to go in front of a fire marshal. Will the fire marshal be the one to make the final determination of how many people can actually go in there? I mean, these are my questions. You know, this one is, I know people want it, but we really don't need that building. And I hear all these things about all these wonderful uses of this building. Well, you know, across the street, there's a couple of big school buildings. And I've heard how, oh, it's so difficult to get to use them. Well, is the answer to spend, after you add this all up, over $3 million, where we could work out some sort of arrangement to make use of all those facilities they have over there? I just think it's not worth the $3 million, and the financial burden to this town is just not worth it. I think it's time to cut our losses on this and send it back to the group that are planning it. They can do fundraising and grants and just let them do what they said they were gonna do. And you know, it's sitting there, it'll actually have a purpose. It'll be kind of sort of a memorial to government waste. We have one downtown in the old Grange building. I think they spent over $1 million in that. How many people have ever been in that?
And made promises to us on use.
So,
First of all, the Grange isn't owned by the town.
yeah, but well, I'm saying
And-
it's another example of government waste, that one down there. I've
And-
always looked at it that they spent that $1 million on that building, Old Grange, and just, hasn't really benefited this town much. And so, and this building here, I don't know, maybe they could find something to store on there. I don't know, but I'm just recommended that we cut our losses and put an end to throwing good money after bad.
Thank you.
Don't have to say.
Ed?
All of these things that you say uses. There are all kinds of privately financed meeting spaces in the local area. You're asking that those people who put up their money to make these meeting places and pay taxes on them to compete against a building that has no expenses. The expenses are all paid for by the taxpayers, so you could say, oh yeah, come have your wedding with me, I'll only charge you $100 instead of $5,000. As far as a place in case of emergencies, you got two big ones over here who now have generators.
Which,
The director of civil emergency preparedness could take over those buildings in case of a disaster.
and we don't own those buildings either.
We don't have to
so-
own them.
But I'm saying that if we want to, if you want to use one of the RSU 2 buildings, you have to fill out a 5-page form to ask permission.
Not in case of a.
Not in case of emergency, but I'm saying that for
Director
the
of civil
general
emergency
population.
preparedness could take over the buildings. Bruce does it in Litchfield all the time.
So for
Whenever
the
there's
general
an emergency
population
out
to use the RSU 2 buildings, you have to fill out a 5-page application and you have to make sure that there is a member of the RSU 2 staff on hand during the whole entire process. So that a lot of times is not feasible. So
And I
if you
agree.
wanted to,
So the answer to that is spending $3 million.
Well-
We should be able to
So
work
is
with,
that
Fishing
policy?
game of.
we should be able to work with the RSU 2. We have enough clout with them. We're one of the biggest parts of it. Come up with a policy that would allow that could happen. We don't have to spend $3 million to correct it.
So you'll be able to vote on that, but for sure, the upkeep of that building, the total monthly estimated costs for sewer, water, lights, propane is around $500 a month, everything in all of that. It has a brand new roof on it that it hasn't had since God knows when. That brand new roof, will get us through the 20 years of the loan that's out there. Yes, grants have been applied for. Multiple grants have been applied for. So it's not that, there's been a ton of fundraising, $70,000 has been raised in fundraising. So the grants out there right now are inundated with people that have encountered the same issues we have with the COVID increases of labor costs and construction costs. There's in every grant that comes back as a no, they cite the number of grants that they get. They've increased grant applications by over 50%, most of them. So the grant world is very difficult, but that initial loan, any grants that do come in, there is the ability to pay down that initial grant with how it was written. So if we do continue, and we will continue to write for grants, if we do get grant money, it can be used to pay down that initial amount. Because that allows it, as opposed to a bond bank bond that doesn't allow you for prepayment.
The architects recommend a higher amount to finish the building.
They came in with a range from 790 to 950 or whatever, yes, that it was the discussion. And we said, what of that list can we take off of there? And we went through that list and took things off. And I think you had one other question I
What
was
about
going to
the
answer about.
timetable of when you all knew that it was not gonna be finished? Did you say continue spending? When was that? You say continue spending or stop? It would have been prudent to say stop. We don't know if we can finish this. Don't spend any more money. What did you all do?
My recollection is that we were informed that there was gonna be a cost overrun and a need for an additional funding to finish the project in July, maybe June of last year, something like that.
And it's my understanding, we don't have the authority to dispense funds or withhold funds when the taxpayers vote for a certain item. It's up to the taxpayers to revoke that or say, no, we don't want to spend any more money. We're just kind of here to make sure the money is spent where the voters say it's supposed to be spent.
I think you
But
could have stopped.
Is there a fiduciary responsibility if you're aware that we are short money? We don't know if the town people are gonna approve the additional money needed to finish this project. Is there a fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the taxpayers saying, whoa, maybe we should hold off on spending the money that has been appropriated because that is only gonna get us so far. We'll have a roof, but we won't have a toilet, so we're not gonna be able to actually use the building. I think that's kind of
Sure.
the spirit of the conversation here is you folks represent us. And I think that there should be some accountability.
We
and some
did have
straightforwardness.
some conversations about the needed cash flow for this project. And if we had pressed the stop button, that would have raised the cost of finishing very substantially. Right? We would have lost a property manager, we would have lost the construction manager and the architecture firm. There would have been some very substantial delays in restarting and re-recruiting. So actually, by scheduling this vote for this June, we have threaded the needle in terms of finding the path of least resistance, finishing the
What
project.
happens if the townspeople don't vote to appropriate the additional money that's needed? What will happen to that building?
We'll weatherize it and let it sit. And we will continue to pay $135,000 a year of the initial authorization
The sunk cost.
from 2020, I don't know, it was even before my time on this board. Yes. So we're on the hook for that as a town.
And do we think that are there any estimates
And
that are gonna show what the revenue, at some point, are there gonna be some fund coming in to offset this? Or is this just really, this is a nice to have and we are taking fun, we are a community. Some of our folks are struggling, right? This tax increase is gonna have a huge impact on some of my neighbors. Some of my older neighbors are going to be in a tough spot when their tax bill comes out because of these fun things. So are there projections to show that there's gonna be a benefit, or are we just spending a whole heap of money on something that someday may be a historic building?
So we know we'll be able to rent it. We know that. I mean.
But is there interest? Is there enough interest?
So yes, everything is speculation. I mean, I don't have a list of people waiting to rent the building. But the point is, there is the ability to generate revenue there. And, that is possible to do. For instance, I use Highmore Farm. They host programs and they have to rent space out in Augusta. to host learning programs. And so one of the thoughts that I've always had is that Highmore Farm can drive around the corner and have education pieces here. I mean, it's around the corner, it's in their town, and they don't have to travel to Augusta and rent a space in Augusta. So that is just a for instance.
What
And
about this building right here? Could they use this building?
anybody can use.
So
this
Highmore Farms
building.
could.
Well, they could if they wanted to, if they knew it was here, but this building is booked almost on every night of the weekdays with meetings in here. And that's the kind of thing that we're running into, is that the space is restrictive in here.
So, I'm glad that you guys are here and asking these questions because, the first part of our meeting was about, hey, this is not the right price. You guys aren't spending the money on the right thing. And so now we found something else where we're not spending the money on the right thing. And the reality of a select board is we're simply trying to follow the instructions of voters. Right? In 2020, like 60% of Monmouth told us to borrow $1.7 million to fix the academy and to do it with the least amount, to do it frugally, right? To start your fundraising and to cut out the elevator so that we can save $100,000. And to make sure that all the demo is done with all the remaining buildings that had no use. And a lot of those things did happen. And a lot of those things were done effectively. But, we're, just as the taxpayers are, we're between a rock and a hard place here, where we're trying to balance the obvious needs of folks who are on fixed income, who can't afford their personal budget. It's going to come from some other place because they're on fixed income when they get a substantial property tax increase. And then we're also trying to balance the needs of growing families and higher costs of housing and all these other things that are going on in our community. We're doing the best we can. We appreciate your input. And we will ask again on this ballot what you think should be done and should not be done. And that's what we will do. We live in fast-changing times. And I don't think anyone in 2020, when they were voting for this building, thought that we were going to have inflation. Nobody did. Who could predict that? So now we're going to make the best that we can of a bad situation. And we're going to try and be as frugal as we can with the property taxpayers' funding.
Oh, we have other things on our agenda. So, it's good to hear all this, but yes, Ed.
You don't talk about how this building affects other budgets. It's gotta be managed. So you're gonna have to pay somebody to supervise it and schedule it and all of these things. It's gotta be cleaned. It's gotta be maintained. Those have a tendency to get hidden in other budgets. The cost of the yearly cost of that building is so far from any revenue you'll ever get. You're competing with the Fish and Game. You're competing with the church basement. You're competing with the farm over in East Winthrop. You're competing with the Willows Awake Winery. You're competing with the View out in Green and such. It's a pipe dream, folks. It's a pipe dream. You will not take in enough each year to wash the windows. So weatherize it, set it. If somebody comes along like Alphonse says, oh boy, look at that project. I could get my name on the building. Then do something.
We've already asked.
I'm sure you did.
I'm sure we've asked numerous people, but
Yes, but it's not a high priority with anybody.
well, it's because there are thousands of people looking for grants out there.
That's right. They've
Hundreds
all
of
got pipe
thousands.
dreams.
Well,
No.
I don't know what to tell you, Ed. It is a high priority for 60% of the voters who voted in 2020.
A high priority, 60% of the voters
56.
want to control the.
I stand corrected.
Yes, heard.
Back to the beach issue. I am confused and I need advice on how to vote to indicate with that Article 12 that I think that is an improper funding. If I vote no, will that take my
No, don't.
to the select board that this is wrong? Or if I ignore it and don't vote? I'm very confused about how to express my feelings about the beach issue. I would like them to get the 40,000 plus more, but how do I express that to you with that vote?
Do you want to answer that?
In a way, and Ed, if you could keep the mumbling down while I say this. All night, all I want to say is really one thing, vote no on Article 12, vote yes on Article 34. That's my way of expressing how I feel about the current budget of the beach. I think it should stick where it is now. That's the way I can get there at this point in time, so that's what I'm gonna suggest.
Thank you.
It's on video.
It's what the town manager said in his little write-up. So if you trust the town manager and the staff of our town, then that's the answer.
Well, I think they're listening though. They hear that.
They're not
You know,
against
they're gonna have to
the
assume
idea
that's
of the beach, so I trust that you've heard us, and I feel like it's been a good experience, so thank you.
Yes. Okay, can we? Thank you.
What else is on the agenda? Something I might like.
Got it right here.
Not much. You want to come back? No. The next thing on the agenda is to consider amending the street and road ordinance.
So essentially, I think we had asked for them to reword it, and it says each section shall not apply to the direction or redirection of stormwater, snow melt, runoff, or other natural sources of water. So that was essentially the amendment that we had asked them to change in that wording, so.
And then this goes to the voters.
And then this goes to the voters, it will be on the
Question
warrant.
on that, Doug.
Yes.
Does that mean if I pipe directly onto the sidewalk and road, or if it's like me, I pipe it out onto the lawn? And then what's piped on the lawn freezes, the next pumping runs over that out to the street.
So the short answer about pumping and it ending up on the street is that is always.
Better turn it down, because everybody in town has a problem.
Exactly, but there's, you know, there's been, specific issues with, them flooding and causing ice, so this was something that we wanted to address, you know, incident by incident. So, or have the code enforcement officer be able to look at them incident by incident and make a determination. Well, I mean, it also, you know, if you just put in a brand new sidewalk and the street's getting flooded and frozen and destroying the brand new sidewalk, then we're looking at maintenance issues there, so.
But on the other side, if you're like most people on Main Street that have houses that are, mine's 200 and almost 25 years old, that's on town water, that you've got to pump water or my boiler's underwater, I've got to put it out. Every house, every one of my neighbors has got to put it out. Mine fortunately goes mostly on my lawn, unless we have a bad storm, the lawn, like he said, leaches out sidewalk. My neighbor next door, he's right there in the sidewalk, because that's how it was built.
Yeah.
So that means that they're gonna have to rip up, figure out how to weigh, he has a tiny little lot, he's gonna have to now put in some sort of a septic for his pumping.
Only if the code enforcement officer
What's he gonna get dinged
Receives
100 or
a-
200 or 400 every time there's a
receives a
storm?
complaint.
Every-
So those are the things, I think if you read the ordinance, it's about the code enforcement. So it's about the code enforcement officer receiving a complaint. the code enforcement officer does not drive around town and look at that stuff, so, yes, Stephen.
I think we have to be accountable. Your house is in the middle compared to mine.
Yeah.
So, we're the first, and I'm pumping outside on the lawn too.
1813, yeah.
So I think that we have to be accountable, and if mine causing a problem, then I'm gonna have to take some expense and do something. And you can't have, everyone's talking about safety tonight. Well, sometimes people breaking a hip on the sidewalk. I've seen the mess that they're flooding cars down there. We're talking about Maple Street a lot.
Because they don't.
And that's a bad problem. We have to be held accountable. It's not always fun. It's sometimes expensive, but. And I don't think we have a Nazi officer that's gonna be going around and picking the little old ladies either. He's gonna take that into account if they can't afford it.
Just that.
We're at discretion. Just that, we're all gonna go after it.
Yes, it's just as.
Well, you're gonna have fun with the one across from the post office that comes with your note there.
Yeah.
Have fun. They got no place to go, so flood the house out.
I'm thinking the code guy would have some kind of a powwow and they're not gonna hurt them, man. They're gonna do what's in the best interest of the town, and they gotta take care of the people too. We make it sound like we have devils for
Spend
public
their
officials. I don't think we do. We have caring people.
Thank you.
We're not caring, and we're gonna make sure no one gets hurt.
And I think it's also notable that we just invested millions of dollars in sidewalk upgrades in various parts of the town, North Monmouth, Maple Street. We've got another big project coming in for Main Street once we coordinate with Maine DOT about drainage issues, just like this. They're starting from the beginning to make sure that we get it right the first time and we don't have to dig twice. And it had been, in the case of Maple Street, probably 50 or 60 years since a significant investment had been made in sidewalks. Some of those sidewalks had completely disappeared. So we just want to continue to make progress in terms of helping people be able to move around town in a reasonably safe way. And I don't think our code enforcement guy, I mean, he's down to 2 days a week. He does not have a whole lot of time to go looking for trouble. He will answer the phone. He will respond to complaints. And he will work with people. And if he doesn't work with people, then you can come talk to us and we'll figure it out.
Not on some pump patrol.
So, and in fact, I do have to say, and that some of the people that got, caught between a rock and a hard place on this issue on Maple Street have already solved the problem. So people are starting to pay attention, and it's the neighborly thing to do. You can't be pouring ice on a sidewalk that we just spent 6 figures on replacing. Expect it's gonna work.
I think the town should be commended too for everybody that's on board here and has put money into, and the taxpayers are voting for these sidewalks, because back in the 1960s, rolling around on the sidewalks, it's a whole different world of quality sidewalks we have now. It's just superb, so the town's doing really well with their sidewalks.
And so that's what this ordinance is. We, just for some background for some of those folks who weren't here at the last meeting, when there was an objection to the first, second, third draft of this ordinance, this latest draft basically gives the authority to the code enforcement person to actually have some teeth if he needs it, and someone is uncooperative, to make sure that sidewalks are ice-free, reasonably ice-free, and that people are not intentionally dumping ice onto sidewalks. And someone asked the question at the last meeting, well, what if it's a natural cause? What if it's, the runoff from spring and it freezes? And it sounds to me like this language would exempt that sort of situation. It's got to be a little more intentional, where someone is actively and repeatedly sending water that freezes on a place where the public should be walking or have an expectation that they can walk.
We all set with the, so are we, we'll vote on the, make a motion to vote.
I'll make a motion. We
Approve.
approve the amended street and road ordinance.
When does this go to vote? When does this go to vote?
Is it another one? Or is it not?
Can't be on this warrant.
No, I think we already have the authority
Yeah,
to
Change the
to
language.
change the language. It's the select board, so this is not an issue that was on the warrant, because we are already authorized to make an ordinance about this particular topic, so.
I will second Chris's motion.
Yes, in fact, we have paid $225 an hour for lawyers to review this. to make sure that
I've seen our
it is
town
exactly
lawyers
right.
tell us lots of things that weren't true.
Well, then we'll ask for our $225 an hour back.
So there's a motion by Chris, second by Mark to approve the amendments to the street and road ordinance. All those in favor? Thank you. And we have no warrant
I'll
23
double check.
that I just checked and I
Oh,
couldn't.
didn't you see it? Oh, we didn't see anything. So we don't have a warrant for, we don't have warrant 23.
So then on to a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank all of you for the work you do. It's a thankless job, I know. Stephen was on it for years and it's not easy.